the reason why I do what I do doesn't come from the fact that I'm an environmentalist. Like, so many think that the reason why you're fighting development is because you're an environmentalist or a tree hugger. So a lot of people say, but for me it comes from a connection to the land, and it doesn't come from like this superficial connection to the land. My father was a trapper. He worked the trap lines for many, many years with his father, who worked the trap lines with his father. And my parents are Indigenous rights activists, and they've always been fighting development. Our trap lines were basically stolen from our family, the trap lines that went into Saskatchewan for uranium development in the late 70s, which dispossessed my family of our trap lines and basically pushed us off our land. And my whole life has sort of had the background of fighting for our rights to our land and fighting resource development and extraction. And so as a child, we used to go and spend a lot of time up north in northern Alberta, and tar sands have been around since the 70s. And so in about 80, probably like 85, 86, my dad, about 87 actually, my dad took us up there and he showed us the tar sands, and he showed us the development, and he showed us what they were doing and how they were destroying the land and how they were poisoning the rivers. And there was literally like a dead fish on the shore outside the Suncor site, which wasn't very big at the time. And my dad said to me, this is what the white man does. He rapes the land. He takes it for oil, and he poisons it in the end. And then we left and we went over into the Indigenous territory, went near Fort McKay, and we went out into the bush, and my dad told us stories of the fire, and the northern lights were probably the most intense northern lights I've ever seen in my entire life. And it was so incredibly beautiful. And we spent about 5 or 6 days just on the land, gathering water from the lakes and the rivers, swimming, fishing. My dad was hunting, and it was incredible. And, you know, one of the things he said to us on the way back into Fort McMurray was, when we passed the Suncor, he's like, you know, you're going to be the one that's going to have to fight these people and make sure that they don't continue to rape the land when you get older, because they're never going to stop unless we stop them. And at the time, I didn't really believe him. I didn't really understand that. But my parents divorced and separated, so I didn't really go back up north for a really long time. And when I went back up north about 3 years ago, or 4 years ago, I drove that same road from Fort McMurray out to Fort McKay. And there's literally nothing left. It is a toxic desert of nothing. And it was like, at that moment, I felt like everything had been ripped out of me. It's like my connection and my memories of that place were just gone. And the reason that's so important isn't for me, but it's for like the next generations, like my daughter, my sister's children. They will never see their land. And the land of our trap land, which was taken from us in the 70s, is gone. It's been polluted by uranium mining. It's been destroyed. You can't drink out of the lakes. There's no more fish. The only thing that there is left to do is try and protect what is left. And that's why I do what I do. These kinds of gatherings are extremely important because sometimes as Indigenous rights activists, as people going out there to protect our land, the government has done a really good job of siloing us off and like putting us in our quarantine little sections and disempowering us as a peoples. But what we are is we are a peoples. We all belong to the same sort of thing. We belong to this Mother Earth. So this brings us together, and you sit there and you go, oh, that makes sense. And you make those connections and you draw those lines and you draw from experiences and you draw from the mistakes and you draw from the successes of other people, and you start to begin to build this sense of community that's greater than what you are, than what your community is. And the struggles become a community struggle and a struggle for all of you. And so it's gatherings like this that I see the hope is that this struggle will become a unity base, and we can start to begin to rebuild our peoples and move towards climate justice, environmental justice, Indigenous justice in this country and on this planet.